Let's start with some background. So what is what are paymasters? What are bundlers? So anyone can take this question.
I think I can take it. So bundler network is basically like a plugin to the mainnet. So the proposal was to not inject into the consensus layer for like introducing more complexity to the development. So it's kind of make the whole like no block proposal thing offline for user operations. That's the term in EIP for actually the transaction before in the actual blockchain network. So bundlers are taking those transactions and relay them. Basically, decentralized relay network is the bundlers. So they relay transaction and send it to the blockchains. And Paymaster, on the other hand, is another like either organization, smart contract, or any service provider that helps to pay the transaction fee. So that's the way to onboard more coiners. The coiners onboarding, so it's supposed to be the good thing for new contacts like Web2 users or not even anyway. So it's like to come to blockchain and without any algos to buy cryptos on exchanges and over here.
Yeah, I'll take it one step back on why account construction. So at the moment, as you know, the way to access the blockchain is you have wallets like MetaMask where you have a set of public and private keys. And when you create your wallet, you have a seed phrase, 12 words seed phrase. This is kind of not a great solution because what happens when you have a new wallet is the way you access your account is very tied to the way you sign your transaction, meaning that if you lose your seed phrase, your funds are gone, right? While if you think about traditional finance, you can lose your credit card, but you don't really lose your funds in the bank. So that's why account construction kind of was proposed. Actually, there is a lot of buzz around it now, but it has been around as a concept for quite a while. And what it does, it's really that all the logic on how to access a wallet kind of lives on the smart contract. So it lives on the blockchain itself rather than having a set of public and private keys as well. You can still have kind of a solution where you expose your key, so it doesn't necessarily to be a keyless wallet. But yeah, that's one of the reasons why we had the account construction in the first place.
Actually, one step back, Richard. Like, what are your top 3 use case on AA? We heard about like how structure recovery, so everything that has to do with who is paying for gas fee transactions. But what are you keen? What are you seeing as safe, or what do you see in the community or even what hackers out there that are going back tonight to the hackathon? What are the top use cases that you think they should build, or what we need more?
I think one of the things that is very important, right, like is the onboarding experience. That we currently, I mean, as it has been outlined, if you have a private key, you from the get-go seriously have to think about how this. So how like the secure when you generate a key, how do you secure it, right? Like if you use a tool to generate your key, is this tool secure? And like if you use smart contract accounts, we actually can approach this problem in a way that we theoretically generate the account first in a less secure manner and secure it over time with more and more security. With a safe, theoretically, as it's originally at the core, it allows you to have multiple keys, so you can start with one key that is more local and then add more 2FA and recovery keys, right? Like so. Really optimizing on this onboarding experience together with counterfactual deployment where you don't have to do on-chain interaction early on is very key. And then extending this over the time, right? Like the account can evolve kind of, right? Like we see a lot of teams where you like, personally, it's like you found your own company and then you grow into a team where more people have influence on your treasury and you hand over like this management with the private key super hard, right? Like an exchange. In the beginning you are your own exchange and suddenly you have billions of funds and then you still have this one private key. It doesn't scale well. Where you have as a smart contract account, you can say, hey, you add access rules, you start having shared ownership on this smart contract account, right? And potentially even go into a DAO case where it's completely on-chain, completely decentralized. Where on the other side, you could also say it's just a more secure account where you go it as a family account, but like you have all the flexibility with this. And building on top of this, building all these use cases, building these evolutions of account is super powerful from account abstraction. It allows you really to bring, like, to cater to all the use cases that we see also in Web 2 being covered with Web3 tools.
Sounds good. We're just moving the mic around. What 1inch does in this space?
Yeah, well, 1inch does a lot of products. As you know, our main product is decentralized exchange, and we also have our mobile wallet available for iOS and Android apps, Android platforms. And in regard of account abstraction, we also investigating the ways how to improve user experience, because for us, we see account abstraction as a way to improve onboarding process. So yeah, currently we are still in early stage of investigating this approach for our needs.
Anyway, okay, cool. I heard so many times account abstraction, I cannot do it anymore almost. But so let's speak about challenges. This panel is all about beyond. What is happening next? Like, what are the challenges that you see in the space right now? What is the problem? Obviously, this is a marathon. What we need to move the space further?
I think for us as a dev, since who has been in the space for like 5 years, and we really started looking at, or like it's a smart contract wallet dev, right? Like in the space for 5 years, we experienced many of the challenges. How do these smart contract wallets interface with the devs? And to be fair, 1inch was one of the teams that really early on embraced this, that we can take advantage of these features like batching transactions and interacting with smart contract wallets, and also embracing these smart contract signatures, right? Like that, which made it really showcase how powerful smart contract wallets be, but they are an exception. Most of the devs still don't really embrace this. They don't make use of this and assume still that everything is a public-private key. And I mean, it's nice that MetaMask has a big adoption, but people assume everything is MetaMask, right? Like this is, and I think it requires a shift. We need to educate the developers. We need to provide the tools, which is one of the big foci of the SAFE team, where it's really like, hey, we have to provide the developer tools and the SDK so that they can build on top, easily build on top of account abstraction and make use of these advanced flows and features.
I think also, yeah, there is a lot of FOMO in the industry right now. If you look at like VC, they're throwing money and everything that I mentioned, account abstraction, smart contract wallet. But it's like, if you look at the stats, is the number of people that are using smart wallets at the moment it's quite low. Actually, there's a great dashboard from the guys at StackUp where you can see like how many active accounts there are. So I think like everyone is expecting this, like everyone to use like a account abstraction in like 2 weeks, but it's like it will take a bit of time.
Yeah, I think we still in early stage of adoption of account abstraction and the ERC-4337. And the main focus areas to improve is, like you said, it's one of the crucial points is education. Also, we need to think of compatibility, because it's vital to improve, to have all these existing accounts and transactions to be used in this new world of account abstraction. And we need to have a migration process for existing users to this new type of wallets, to this new infrastructure. Another important point is, I think it's one of the most crucial points, is security, because currently account abstraction provides like several centralization points, and all these components they need to be validated, thoroughly validated, in terms of to establish the trust and confidentiality in the whole system. Because like the account abstraction, it consists of many processes, like bundlers, paymasters, entry point accounts, and then there will be several smart contract wallets, smart contracts wallets. So all these together, it should be like validated, and security wise should be one of the most important points.
Also to leverage on the security point. But like it's one of the things where the SAFE from early on was really invested in. We had for the early versions formal verification with runtime verification. We are reformalizing, like redoing our formal verification together with Tintora. So we really want also to check how can we bring it to the wider ecosystem that then integrates with the SAFE contracts where to build all the use cases. Because security is super crucial and hard to grasp. Like we see it with 4337, a lot of edge cases are coming up where you then potentially change certain details in the protocol where developers have to adopt to it. And so it's not easy to have security, and one of the big goals that also we see with SAFE and where we want to engage with the different parties, auditors, formal verification and bounty tools really is to provide a framework where we can have people contribute to this ecosystem and still the end user needs to feel secure to use it, right? Like it's this whole risk. Smart contracts are super powerful, but let's quote Uncle Ben, right? Like with a lot of power comes a lot of responsibility, right? Like so this is what we have to handle somehow.
All right, and from our point of view, so is it okay? All right, so from Blockle point of view, we were Contra Wallet from the very beginning. And I was talking just now with Richard. Actually, SAFE and Blockle was having a very similar situation. We were Contra Wallet, nobody likes it, and we did actually Blockle already did get some sponsoring for a very long time. Because Contra Wallet wasn't the mainstream solution, so a lot of the apps or a lot of things just didn't work. And I think 4337 paved a very good way. So the challenges before was now kind of solved by Ethereum Foundation because it made the Contra Wallet into the venue. But from Blockdash, we are seeing something in front of us. So it's like if there is more clients, more wallets, implementing smart contract wallets, what does it mean to our users? So that's why we introduced the open block, which is announced this afternoon. So it's a thing that you think of in the future, a lot of wallets in the market. You choose one wallet and you want to switch, but you couldn't switch because the contract information is different. But then we need some standards or some protocols for users to switch between wallets because for users, even you're in a decentralized world, if you cannot switch easily from one wallet to another, basically you're stuck with it. So you look like decentralized, actually you're not. So that's the thing we're proposing to open block. We want to build together. Actually, I saw like Safe4, they're building auth-kit, a lot of tool chains for blockchain wallets. Actually, we think we can do it together, like making the protocol together and switch users between wallets and making the whole world, at least the users in the blockchain, more decentralized and more safe from the bankruptcy of the wallet company, for example, or hacked from a specific implementation. You can easily switch, easily run away from those standards implementations. And that's the thing we want to. Well, if you look at the challenges before was already kind of solved by Ethereum Foundation. We don't know how it's gonna make it or not, but at least everybody's now looking at smart contract wallet. And Blockto has been a contract wallet for a very long time. We're looking in the future, okay, what if this thing really takes off? What if everybody's on a smart contract wallet? What's next? So OpenBlock is thinking that if we can have a protocol between smart contract wallets and user can switch in between, and with very frictionless, and it's we think it's better for the users and better for the community. And overall, as the blockchain industry, we always want to go to mass adoption. That's the main purpose of F47. And these ability to switch in between should be another piece of the puzzle to make users more decentralized and self-custody and more free from those mega company that holds it. Yeah.
No, super interesting to see also what's coming next after the smart contract wallets. What you mentioned a couple of times, developer education. Is there what are the top resources or what are we lacking right now? Huge fan of 47, but those kind of ecosystem, what's happening in the ecosystem?
So I feel at the moment there is, so if you go on Google and you Google what is a counter-transaction, what are smart contract wallets, there's so many articles on it, but no one really shows what you can really do with it. So there is a lot of theory out there, but there is not good developer resources. I feel it's improving, but we're still kind of far away. So that's why on 4337 Mafia we do so much stuff to kind of educate the community. We want to onboard as many developers as possible. And this is why this kind of events series, we did one with Francesco and the Bioeconomy guys in Denver, and we were supposed to have 50 people, 150 people show up, so it kind of show us that there is a lot of interest in the community. And like, we're not doing this to push like any MetaMask or any other company in general. It's just like because we really want to see like everyone, all the Web3 developer community coming together and start to build like cool stuff. In terms of resources, there is, apart from our Telegram group, we also have a GitHub repo. I think it's created by the guy, by Corbin Page and some other guys. There is a lot of resources in there, all the articles like on what from Ethereum Foundation and other companies. Yeah, if you guys know any other good resources.
Actually, hard to say what are really good resources, because I think a lot of the resources that exist, and even actually have to say also our own resources, are really geared towards you have new developers coming onto the space and really want to start hacking, right? Like, I mean, it's, to be fair, account abstraction is super powerful to onboard new users and target them, but as Andrew said, right, like there are existing applications, there are existing wallets, and they need to migrate, and I think this is going to be a big part where also with the Ethereum Foundation we have to work together to start this education. The Ethereum Foundation has a nice article outlining high-level concepts, but really what are the concrete steps, what are the SDKs, and I think there are quite some projects out there, and SDKs is a big focus also for us to improve the documentation of SDKs is a big focus to go there, but it's a long step, right? Like that's why it's very nice to see that in-person events currently super valuable. Events like this, like East Tokyo, where you can talk to the providers of the SDKs and they can give you a hands-on experience, where we can also leverage the open source community, right? Like take a look at our source code. I know it's hard, it's not always easy, but I mean, also for myself, I learned a lot about the crypto space by looking at the MetaMask source code actually, right? Like I was deep diving into it. And this is where I would recommend, right, like really make use of this. Look at Empire, look at Argent, look at the Safe, look how they work, because this allows you also to understand how you can apply this.
Speaking of resources, I think what article really helped me a lot from Alchemy's blog. Like I read about the account abstraction, like the very that the long articles you can read about it, and also from our own blogs, I also wrote some like short version, like, but that's from a different angle, like from Contra wallet, the existing Contra wallet with the relearn model going to the 4337, kind of the same thing in a different format. Just like those are good resources. And also, we're rolling out our own SDK in a few weeks. Like we're going to roll out the fully 4337 compatible wallet. So because we were already Contra wallet, so 4337 is a little too can go with that. We're going to provide our bundler and user services, and also our wallet SDK. And I hope that can help the community grow and build apps on it on top of it.
Cool, sounds good. I think we give a good background and what's the next challenges. I think like we want to involve a little more the audience, and it's a good time to ask questions.
Yeah, so perhaps a spicy question. There's a 4337 Mafia. Why isn't there a 3074 Mafia?
Not the right question. I'm not the right person to answer the question.
3740, right? Like Oscorp.
Yes.
I think you have the wrong people theoretically on stage, because we are more on the side that would push the account abstraction rather than the 437, the Oscorp side, right? Like I think it was outlined earlier, right? Like that the motivation to do really consensus changes, and Oscorp is a consensus change, right? Like you bring this way higher, and then actually with Oscorp there was a very strong voice about the security factor. But also Andrew said, right, like Oscorp, even more so than account abstraction, you have to really think about what you do, because so giving a short introduction about Oscorp is like you basically have an opcode, so on the lowest level in Ethereum, where you can say, hey, I give the power of my private key to a smart contract. And this obviously, if you do this without knowing it, that means it's not that you lose everything that is on the private key with, like, where it's actually stolen, but like it can happen just because the smart contract that you gave it to was faulty, right? Like, so it's a double-edged sword, right? Like, this is with security, it becomes very hard, and there was a very high voice that, okay, it's nice, it's a feature, it could solve certain things, but then doesn't solve account abstraction. It just introduces, it solves minimal batching and relaying stuff, but introduces that the offside, the sort of downside is way higher in this regard. So this is where I feel like, okay, this is where the community was way more split on this, where when we look at 4337, right, like how can we pay gas fees from a smart contract account? How can we sponsor transactions, right, like this gasless experience? There's, without doing consensus changes, right, like this is there, you get it way easier to push for it. And yeah, quite frankly, also, if you have somebody like Vitalik jumping onto your EIP, this gives you a quite big boost. Even so, if we have to say this whole, how can you do gasless transaction is like quite old topic. If you browse through the whole EIP history, there are quite a lot of EIPs really going into this, how can we do meta transaction? That's an old name for account abstraction. But yeah, I mean, it has been around for a while. Why I think also with Osco, also again there, Vitalik was not that keen about this, so it has a big influence. It's, I think, something to be aware of in a decentralized world, how much power the voice of a single person can have.
Right, so I think speaking of that article, actually I can provide another angle of looking at that. So Blockly wallet is a monetary wallet, so actually we are the largest wallet on Flow, and we are the top few wallet on Aptos. And actually Flow and Aptos provide a native support for money, like the account structure by native. So account, so if you look back to Ethereum, actually Ethereum account system is a little bit primitive. And those new chains like Flow Aptos, they don't have those like huge TVL, many hackers, many black hat, white hat, and many decks, a lot of money over there. So I think it's reasonable for Ethereum to take like baby step and going forward. But I also agree that altcoin is probably like the next step towards the account structure, because for now that 4337 doesn't support all EOA accounts. So you can now like switch it off like from the EOA, transfer it, like for example just put in some code into the code storage and make it one smart contract. This is right now. But later on probably we have to do that because so we already see that like, it's fair to say that Aptos or Flow are not like built as safe as Ethereum does. But we still see a lot of benefits. At least we don't have to like hack around to do guest sponsoring or to do like mail transaction, those kind of stuff. So actually benefits the users. We already see that. We already saw that on those new chains. But yeah, I agree that Ethereum still needs something maybe safer step and more experience on layer 2 or layer 3 to see that how it works and how it's failed asset, how it's hacked probably or not.
I actually think Safe and I'll talk you guys announced like gas fee payments from the provider side. That was quite cool, no? Was that the announcement?
I mean, it's there with Gnosis Chain, we went the way we said that really the chain pays for it. It's actually quite interesting. You see a couple other ecosystem projects or chains where you see this where, hey, when we drive network traffic on the network, right, like it's the incentive should be somewhere else than by the user to pay the fees. And it depends. It's nice that I mean, it's personally I love it when it's the entry point for a dev developer that you don't have to take funds at your own hands to get people engaged in your protocol because you say, hey, they are willing to pay for it. It's nice, and you can do this with many relays. Gelato allows you to relay transaction. ERP-4337, there's OpenZeppelin has a relayer. In the past, Infura had a relayer, right? Like all of this goes there, but also there are protocols where the protocol is fueled by their native token, and by providing the chains, their native token gets traction, and therefore alone for running the chain, they have an incentive to pay for certain interactions, the gas. Right? Like, and this is where I think this might shift. Also for Gnosis Chain, there we have the agreement with them that they take over the gas piece, but that's actually not Gnosis Chain. That's also other chains where this is a long-term mindset where they have for certain interactions we want to incentivize it. But yeah, take on Gnosis Chain for is Tokyo because they're for safe the gas fees are taken on by Gnosis Chain.
Any other question? Let's do some spicy question, guys. Really. Test our panelists here. Yeah. Another unusual face.
Thank you. I'm a big fan of MetaMask. Love it. This question is actually for my parents, right? So today we're doing a lot of effort to onboard people and then get them familiar with the seed phrase and how to use the wallets. what are your thoughts about the migration as account abstraction wallets become more popular? Whatever work we've done so far, how do you see that transition happening? We've just spent a lot of effort on it, so you know, what are the scenarios?
In when you say migration, in what way? Like transferring your funds to a smart contract wallet, or I mean, what I really like about account abstraction is the kind of granularity that you can have, like even with onboarding. Like you can choose the way that like people can access the wallet, right? If you look at the use cases at the moment, if you look at what people are building, like the guys at Bravos, which is a project I really like, having people signing a transaction via your hardware, so like Face ID, Touch ID. I think it's super cool and it's so easy because everyone is already used to that by Google Pay, Apple Pay. So when you just do a transaction the way, it's something that is very reliable for everyone, I guess, for your parents as well. And so that's like the thing I like the most about this space. It's like that people are coming up with all these kind of use cases. If you ask about MetaMask, we have this project called Snaps, which is a kind of ecosystem of plugins that run on top of the MetaMask itself. And people started to build snaps that are related to account abstraction. So the economy guys built something really cool. Someone built one that kind of makes Uniswap with account abstraction. So there is a lot of things that are coming up. I have another kind of personal answer, which is going to be a bit controversial. I think, like, in my opinion, I would like to see like a wallet kind of start to disappear, just like be very invisible. So what I want to, like, I don't know, think about like if I want to play a game, if there is some blockchain transaction at the moment, I have to go to MetaMask to create an account, then I have to go back to the game. If we don't expose a way to access we don't have an API for access to expose the developer, obviously they see trace anything, so you still have to access MetaMask, etc. So it's like very slow the process. What I would like to see is like I go to a game and there is a button that say you want to play, click here, enter your email, I get a magic link, this creates a wallet on the fly, and then I go back and boom, that's it. So that's what I want to see in the future. It's like just wallet become more and more like SDK rather than an interface, and then like all the logic is handled on the app side.
So I have a fair enough suggestion for parents. Just use Block the wallet. Yeah, actually we're doing that for quite a bit of time. So we're trying to onboard Web2 users. So actually our account system use email to log in, and later on we're going to roll out like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, like social account login. So under the hood, we create one contract wallet for you, and with multi-sig key, one on a device, one on a server. And at first, at the very beginning, we're in a full custody mode, so we hold all the private keys. Later on, so this is to onboard the like Web2 users or like your parents, normal usage. Email is like everywhere. So it's for the very beginning, you go into the blockchain room and you try it a bit, and you don't have to care about your private keys. Don't have any assets in your wallet at the very beginning. And later on, when you get more and more familiar with the technology, you want to be like self-custody. We assume that everybody's going to go towards self-custody in blockchain mode. So later on, you can switch to self-custody mode. We will like rotate the physical contract wallet. So just rotate the key and send it to you, or just like leave it to you. So you take full control of the wallet when you intend to do it. What we do is that we send meta transactions for your parents. Right. For every user, actually, for every user we have. So we send meta transactions, you sign the transactions. If you sign the meta transaction, send it. We are there basically. And we have like you can pay it either with like Ether, you pay it with ERC-20. You can even like buy some points, system with credit cards. So that's fully like if you don't do like DeFi stuff, you don't do like folding or like staking, like trading, and you just play games. You play in the deep. Actually, you don't need the native token. You don't even have to know the gas fee. So we provide like in-app purchase credit cards for those like real-world users to easily onboard. I think that probably solves it.
Just to double check, you ask how, like we did a lot of user education already, right? Like, so we taught them, here's your private key, secure it well, don't do X, Y, Z, do like this 10X, like when you go to my crypto, you have to click to 10 dialogues before you can actually do anything, right? Like, so, let's be honest, we have to, like for the short term, we will have to do something. It's not that smart contract accounts completely suddenly disappear. There's still a key in your, like for most of them, and it's still super useful knowledge, right? Like if we look at the Web 2 world, how many people have password as their password? It's sad, right? Like, and there was a recent article that ChatGPT can guess like most of the passwords, most of the users, right? Like, cool. So, I mean, it's still a good education. We should still keep this. Users should be aware, like, nice, it's not maybe a mnemonic. There's other stuff that you need to take care and make sure that even if you sign up with email, normally your email has a password and like, keeps it secure, right? Like, so this user education was useful, we should keep it up, right? Like, it's, if we want to empower people, I mean, this is what to say if we don't want to unlock ownership. If you want to unlock ownership, they need to be aware it comes with responsibility. You need to take care of your ownership, right? And there's education required, you need to take care. Even if you build safety nets after safety nets, it's this education that we have done so far, we need to continue it. It's not that we can stop doing it, right? Like, this is really my belief. It's really, we should take the education. Maybe you have to adjust it a little bit, but it's still super relevant. Continue it and don't stop it.
Yeah, I'd like also to add that currently we live in like rather non-custodial world when users are responsible for their private keys, for their seed phrases. And there is a huge trade-off between this one press of button experience when everything happens behind the scenes and the privacy and security, because there is a very minor difference between one button experience and custodial wallets. Basically, we have to keep this balance, having the also non-custodial wallets background and also providing the best experience, like one press of a button to do a transaction.
Any other questions?
Yeah, we have it.
Hi. So one of the challenges I see with 4337 and account abstraction more generally is that there are multiple different problems going on that are not necessarily all the same. So I heard at least 5 different problems being integrated. One is BIP37 seed phrases being unwieldy. Another is the need to use private and public keys to verify or specific type of elliptic curve to verify signatures. Another is gasless transactions. Another is the problem of securely storing your private and public key. And so these are all maybe related, but frankly, very different goals. And it seems like 4337 sort of tries to solve all of them at once. And so what I would like to ask is for each of the 4 folks on stage to summarize in 1 sentence, in less than 20 words, what account abstraction is.
Thank you.
Oh, damn, that was not nice. I put the microphone and now I have to start again. Less than 20 words, 1 sentence. I think for me, account abstraction is the flexibility to really tackle all of these problems that you mentioned individually. They are not one problem that you can tackle as once, as it has been communicated by others as you outlined. But really, we need to focus and we need the flexibility to tackle them one at a time, individually. I could have stopped up now, but yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I'll try in 20 words. I think account abstraction is a way to have unified interface and entry point, which both decentralized and has good user experience.
All right. So I think 4337 is a protocol to define and try to solve the questions, the problems all together with the community. So it's probably not the best thing, but it's like it brings it to the view and everybody have a protocol to talk about it and to solve it.
for 337, it's the granularity to abstract all these problems that you just mentioned in a smart contract in a permissionless way.
I know I should not have many. One thing that I realized is like all of the problems that you mentioned, right? Like have the one thing in common that the private key is part of this, right? Like that we have a lot of assumptions about private keys. I think these assumptions you outlined also go way beyond actually this on-chain account abstraction, right? Like a lot of times when we talk about ERC-4337, it talks about a very specific on-chain part, how you pay gas fees. But actually, when you think about account abstraction and also how we migrate out of it, we have to think beyond also on-chain. I mean, it's how you sign stuff. We have ERC-1271 for contract signatures. All of this, we have to think outside of the on-chain world, purely, right? Like, and especially interesting, before we ask, like, how do we migrate away with, like, the user auth, like auth, right? Like, and there is an opcode which is upserve user or something like this, which basically takes an address and puts smart contract code there. And at this point, for the on-chain world, it's not an EOA anymore. That's very nice for the on-chain world. In the off-chain world, this, I'm sorry for my language, this fucks up everything. Because basically you can easily recover, and then easy recover says, yes, this is still your account, but then you go on chain, it's like, no, it's not your account anymore, right? Like, so these details are really where you have to pay attention. It's not only the on-chain world, we have to also think about the off-chain world, the dApps, how they interact with each other. So yes, stop thinking about purely private keys and stuff like this is super important.
I think I can add up a little more about off-chain key management thing. So actually I had a discussion with some wallet providers at Denver, and we talk about like Contra wallet versus MPC, so which is another like computational decentralized key management thing. So we kind of agree that actually MPC is good for on-chain key management if you want to have like multiple parties holding different parts of the private key. So that gives you like social recovery or more security in monolithic for those things. And it's you can look at like, for example, Web3 auth. They do a very solid project about like the MPC member making your MPC out of your social account, something with some players. And those are not like, so because MPC people were like, oh, Contra wallet is here, what are we gonna do? It's like the Contra wallet provide monolithic versus MPC is another debate. Like if you want to do MPC or Contra wallet monolithic. But actually, at the end of our discussion at the moment, actually we sort of agree that these are not like fighting each other. So MPC can provide good key management with multiple parties off-chain. And later on, you use that key to authorize your on-chain wallet and do the on-chain thing. So 437 is more on on-chain thing. So you do like meta transactions, you just do like batch transactions, those things, and gas subsidizations for on-chain activities. But if you look at key management things, nothing more than what's beyond scope. It's nothing more than the current EOA wallets rather than MPC wallets. So I think it's better like separate problem if you're trying to solve them.
Guys, we are almost on time. Let's take two more questions, but really like answer 20 words. This is the night today. Good. Let's do questions. You wanna shoot the question? Yes, here.
You guys, I think it was Andrew, you mentioned a little bit about some of the challenges that decentralized hard stack. I'm wondering if you guys can talk about which areas of the stack you think are the hardest to decentralize and sort of what the efforts to do something like that might look like right now.
I think there are several parts that are centralized now with ERC-4337. One of them is entry point contract. So it's obviously centralized because all user operations should go through this entry point. Another two parts are bundlers and paymasters. They kind of behind the ERC-4337, but they are required for this AP to work, and these parts are also centralized.
I think as Andrew said, right, like these very crucial parts which actually execute are already centralized to some extent, or not decentralized yet. But even beyond this, if you think about a lot of the tooling that web developers use, we already, in the existing world, we see that they're decentralized, right? Like if you think about nodes, how do you query the blockchain? There is very, like, there's a lot of projects that work on this. How can we incentivize the running of a full node of archive node? Because it's like a lot of this is you run this, either you pay for a centralized party to provide you this data, or you hope that some public RPC endpoint exists that provides this data. But really good decentralized networks don't exist. I see the graph team there sitting, right? Like they're working on this with how do we decentralize and make it easily accessible. I think this with smart contract wallet, where we even move this one layer further in, where then it's internal transaction that we have to track, becomes even harder to decentralize. So like it's not only on this execution layer, which actually security-wise is more critical to some extent, but it's also when you want to consume this on the indexing and data provision layers, it's also very hard to decentralize. And we look at MetaMask and Infura. MetaMask uses Infura, which that's what I wanted to get at. Infura is also a major centralization point if you think about it right now. If you look at some networks where all the validators run on AWS is a major centralization point in the Ethereum world, right? Like all of this, we have a lot of work to do there.
Yeah, and for centralization, actually, from my point of view, if you look at the whole network infrastructure, they are very centralized. Network fiber under the seas, like those like GCP, MLS, they got a lot of infrastructure, so almost 90% of the network. But if you look at the application layers, actually we want a protocol. We want a protocol to be kind of centralized, everyone can talk the same languages, like the implementation, wallets, or probably the nodes themselves, the clients. We want that to be, we want diversity with the clients. So from my point of view, look at the way. The entry point itself, I'm not sure it's gonna be a protocol or implementation. Anyway, those kind of things we talk to each other, we have to be centralized. That's for the efficiency of the community. But later on, everybody can do their own job, like different wallets, different apps. Those are the things you want to be centralized. It's kind of the same thing with like HTTPS. Kind of stuff you rely on the like very infra network, but you still have your certificate, you still have CA is probably something very centralized. But anyway, you still got like cryptography to make sure that your requests or anything goes like beyond those middlemen, everything, like, make the thing secure.
It's also kind of go back to the challenges. What I see in this space at the moment is like everyone is trying to build a wallet, everyone is like trying to be the new MetaMask, but how many companies out there are focusing on infrastructure? How many companies are focusing on providing bundle the master services? There is a few of them. There is actually Team Rico. I wanted to give them a shout out because they're sponsoring this event as well. This economy and it's a cup. There is probably 2 more, but that's it. While we have like 50 companies focusing on the client side. So I think also this is the other problem, right? Like we need more companies out there to focus on infrastructure. We need more solution to avoid this kind of centralization problem.